All right, hi everybody. Meteorologist David Glenn here on this Friday night, January the 23rd, as we get ready to head into a weekend that's going to have a lot of weather changes as the weekend goes on, starting with some wintry weather to some freezing weather to some very, very wet weather on Sunday, and a lot to follow as we go through the next several days. It's going to be very, very interesting for sure, watching all this unfold. And I appreciate those of you who've been following us all throughout the week. It's been a, challenge, as I mentioned, challenging forecast, but that's our job. We got to sit here and figure out, what's going to transpire. And I really think that as we have gotten from late Tuesday to now, the main focus has been on the impact potentially of some icing across our viewing area. And the main concern is a lot of moisture with all that cold air coming in. First comment said, "Are my sleeves up?" Yeah, they're up. Even though we're talking about winter weather, it's been busy, and for sure, and it's going to be even busier as we head through the day on Saturday. But let me take you through a couple of things, and we'll have, of course, our newscast coming up at 11 o'clock. We'll go over some of the newest data coming in. Not much has really changed overall, but I'm going to show you again what to anticipate as we head toward tomorrow morning, and the changes that will evolve as we head through the day on Saturday. I appreciate everybody joining us and all your comments throughout the week. It's been tough trying to answer questions from folks. I've had a lot, everybody, every time we put a new weather update, everyone's wanting to joke around about it. I get that. Everybody jokes about the weather. I feel like an NFL referee sometimes. It's all my fault. But I've been trying to get to some of those questions, kind of weed through all that. But anyway, we'll get through this all together. All right, first of all, I want to remind you that throughout the weekend, as you're watching right now on my various social channels, if you're not watching already, you can join me on all these other social media platforms. Many of you already do. That's why you got that alert and you're watching me right now. But if you don't, be sure to sign up for that. I'll be live streaming like I'm doing now throughout the upcoming weekend. Well, let's talk about it overall. Let's go to the next graphic here, and we'll talk about what to anticipate heading through the weekend. Now, this is as of 10 o'clock Friday night. Look at the temperatures. They're going down. A lot of 30s, some spots already down to the 20s. And notice that airflow. It's going to continue from this direction coming up all throughout the day on Saturday. All right, so it's going to keep us cold. It's going to keep it a little dry too. And that dry air is a little kind of critical there for the early part of the day coming in. But look at those temperatures really cooling down. The winds are going to be quite gusty tomorrow, pushing in that cold air. And then more of that cold air arriving, heading throughout the nighttime hours on Saturday night before a wind shift takes place, coming back in from the south. So a lot of dynamics here going on. So overall, here's what we're going to go through. And I'll show you the future track coming up. First thing we're going to get is a mix developing tomorrow morning. Now, many of you are saying, I'd like to see some snow. Well, you might. I think you might see a little light snow starting off first thing tomorrow morning. It's going to be very light, very patchy. I think anything accumulating will be a little bit north and west of the city and the mountaintops, and especially along the plateau. But that's a very brief portion. So I just want to let you know, if you see a little snow in the morning on Saturday morning, yeah, very possible. But what will start happening is as the day goes on, temperatures up above start warming. And when that starts to happen, well, that transitions everything to more of a mix. So a little bit of light snow, light sleet, and then in the afternoon, more light sleet into some freezing rain. The amounts are going to be very light to start the day, and then the amounts are really picking up and in coverage later in the day and on towards Saturday night. So that's where we transition to more of freezing rain Saturday night. That's our big concern, and how long that's going to last, because you all know this. Just drive around our viewing area. You ever looked at your car's thermometer, climb the mountain, go back down? Or sometimes you're in the city, you drive home, you live in a valley area way east of the city, you're much colder. Yeah, there's colder valley pockets, there's colder high elevation areas. Everybody is going to cool and warm at varying rates. And because of that, it's going to affect the duration of any icing going on Saturday night. And with so much deep moisture coming in, that icing could add up pretty quickly. And because of that, that could lead to some power outages and some downed trees. The other thing to watch for here is at higher elevations especially, those winds are going to be quite gusty. I showed you that northeast wind coming in. Well, there'll be the northeast wind, then a bit of a wind shift. And as that wind shift happens and winds are gusty, any weight of ice in those trees makes them snap a little bit faster. Okay, and that could lead to more power outages. And any longer duration of that icing leads to heavier amounts of ice. So we're going to have some areas that could be heavily impacted, some more so than others. Others may just have a cold rain throughout the night. You may be at your house and it's just 33 and raining and not a problem. And that's great. Nobody wants to be in an ice storm. Trust me. I'd rather it just be raining and nothing happening. But unfortunately, with so many cold pockets around, we're going to have to go through that at least for a period of time, Saturday night through Sunday morning. Once we see temperatures in the valley start warming a bit, it all becomes rain Sunday. So rain is going to be the main thing to watch for Sunday. Some of that very heavy. Some of that could lead to some flash flooding in spots and a little thunder to the south. It's not impossible. Then by early Monday morning, all this heavy rain, well, it's got to run off somewhere. And as very cold air comes in, it could lead to some black ice early Monday morning. So that's on the other side of the system. Keep in mind, as we watch Saturday night, just a small change in temperature changes it all from wet to icy pretty quickly. Okay, so we got to watch that really, really closely. So that's going to be something to really watch. Very busy this time for Saturday night. So you don't see this all that often. This is an ice storm warning for pretty much all of our viewing area, a large part of it. Now, a few exceptions. I'll explain why coming up. But all of our viewing area, mostly in southeast Tennessee, with a few exceptions, under this ice storm warning starting early Saturday afternoon. Now, we'll still see a little mixing even before that, but really the gist of this comes in Saturday afternoon through overnight Saturday night. And then Northwest Georgia got added to that this afternoon, so it kind of expanded that area. And the same thing toward Cherokee and Clay County, North Carolina, you're also under that warning until late Sunday. Now, you notice a couple of exceptions here. Some counties look a little bit different, so we'll show you the winter storm warning area, and that includes the Cumberland Plateau, Grundy, Van Buren, Cumberland. You might see a little bit of accumulating snow before a changeover, so a little snow sleet accumulation, then some freezing rains. You truly got that mixed bag that could really impact things quite a bit. So varying changes all across our viewing area. I know everyone is concerned about their backyard, and I am too, but I got to cover 23 counties of backyards. So my job's a little tougher here to kind of see how each and every backyard is going. As far as the winter weather advisory, this is a little step below an ice storm warning. It still means you'll see some icing, but maybe a little bit less. And the reason why Monroe and Polk aren't under that advisory, under that warning yet, is because of the airflow. When it comes down from the northeast like that, like this, it tends to cause some downsloping and maybe have temperatures warm a little bit. So because of that, you may spend a little less time at or below freezing, so a little less icing. And hopefully that's the case, and you don't have it lasting longer. So we'll have to keep an eye on that closely on Saturday if there's any change to that advisory. Same thing across northeast Alabama. Do be aware of some slick spots and sporadic power outages in spots where some icing could occur. But for right now, it's a winter weather advisory until Natural Weather Service in Huntsville changes it otherwise. So through late evening, not seeing a whole lot going on. This is through 10:15. Clouds thickening up to the west. It's still very dry. Dew point still around 10 to 12. So we got very dry air coming in. There's our winter storm that we're watching. And you can see what's going on. You see a lot of rain down over Texas, south of Dallas. They've had a bit of a mix so far. You go back toward Fort Worth, toward Lubbock, and you've got now freezing rain, sleet, and all snow, Oklahoma City to Wichita. And that's all heading off to the north and east. The Ohio Valley is going to be seeing a lot of heavy snow. And right along the Tennessee-Kentucky border north, that's where all that deep snow is going to be. South of there is just a mess, but it's a critical mess. We got to watch really, really carefully. All right, so future track shows first thing in the morning. All right, let me back that up one more time. Let's go backwards a bit. One more time. There we go. All right, first thing in the morning, you might see a little bit of mixing to start with, okay? A lot of this is really light to start with, so it might actually evaporate before reaching the surface, but when it does reach the surface, you'll see some patchy areas of a little light snow, a little light sleet. Sleet makes that hissing sound when you hear it accumulating outside, and sleet, there's those little pellets that bounce. They're basically snowflakes that melt before reaching the surface and then refreeze into colder air near the surface. They go through a metamorphosis, okay? So you might be seeing a little bit of that, but don't be surprised to see a little bit of snow. People are wanting some snow. This is your best chance is during the morning to about midday with that early leading edge, that patchy moisture. Now, as the atmospheric column moistens a bit, we might briefly get above freezing into the afternoon and then drop back as more of this moisture comes in. So around midday, you've got some patchy sleet, still some patchy light snow around. May cause a little light accumulation in spots. Don't be surprised to see that. But gradually, notice more of this pink and purple. Watch the timeline here. We get into the mid part of the afternoon. There's more of that pink shading. That's because temperatures up above are warming and it's pushing north, okay? So even where areas we saw a little bit of snow early, it then becomes more sleet. And then a little bit eventually more freezing rain, especially south, as you start seeing temperatures warming above freezing. But as I mentioned, once you have that being absorbed by the atmosphere, we have what we call evaporative cooling, or that evaporation of that moisture into the air cools the air back down. So notice by 4:45 to about the early evening, some of those temperatures that were above freezing come back down. So this is where it gets really critical for Saturday evening and overnight Saturday night, because so many areas will be at or below freezing. Okay. There'll be some areas just hovering just above that freezing mark, and you may just get rain. And like I said earlier, that's fantastic. I'm rooting for 33 and rain. That's what I want, because I don't want any ice. I went through an ice storm. I've seen it several times through my life, but there's one time I remember, and some of you may remember this too. Here in Chattanooga in 1973, in January of 73, we had a major ice storm. That was awful. I can still hear the sound of the trees snapping during the middle of the night. It sounded like a rifle shooting, and the trees falling and being without power for days, being bitter cold. I don't want that. And, that's what I fear. That's what I do not like, ice storms. And so in this case, we're going to have to see areas that are possibly going to have a period of time where you've got some weight of that ice on tree limbs and trees and power lines and causing those outages, because you're going to have a lot of deep moisture coming in during the night and temperatures at or below freezing. This takes us to about the pre-dawn hours on Sunday. And notice how the airflow switches a bit. It starts coming back in from the southeast. So even through Sunday morning, there may be still some valley pockets that are still below freezing, higher elevated spots that are below freezing. You may even see a few spots where that strong southerly jet takes over. You might even see higher elevations that are above freezing, only to have some valley pockets still below freezing. So it's going to vary all across our viewing area and when we finally get above freezing. So it may mean some areas extended longer in that freezing rain zone and more ice accumulation. So it's really going to vary from location to location, not just Chattanooga alone. We have to go, we broadcast from Crossville all the way down to Rome, Georgia. So a lot of counties to track here. But I do believe that once we get towards, say, mid-morning, you got more of that south wind coming in. As that starts to happen, more areas start to get above freezing, thankfully, and it turns into heavy rain. Now, with that said, it doesn't improve travel issues. Yeah, it does help melt the ice. That's a good thing. But it's also going to be very breezy. And I need to mention that. I failed to mention that for the overnight hours Saturday night. The weight of some of that ice on tree limbs, especially at higher elevations, and wind gusts 10 to 20 and higher, could cause some of those to break, tree limbs and tops of trees and cause more power outages. So that's a big, big concern at those higher elevated spots. Lookout, Signal, Mowbray Mountain, for example, around the city and even across the plateau. Once we get into Sunday afternoon, it's still going to be breezy and rainy. So not really good for travel. And it's going to be excessive runoff and some flash flooding in spots. So that's going to be a big concern throughout the day. But notice we go through the afternoon, everybody's above freezing, hopefully. Sometimes we tend to warm a little slower than the models show, okay? But most model data has been fairly consensus showing a warming taking place. And if that happens, it all does become rain and alleviates that ice problem. Again, any longer length of time, we may have a worsening ice situation. That's something we have to keep in the back of our mind and understand that that's very possible. But hopefully that warming takes place and it's all just rain by Sunday and is good. But when the ground is had ice or it's cold, it doesn't absorb moisture quite as rapidly. So this rapidly falling rain, you're going to have a lot of runoff and watch for some flooding issues in flood-prone areas, because we could have 2 to 2.5 inches of rain coming up. Going through late day Sunday, most of the rain tapers off. That's good. But now watch the temperatures. Look at this by early Monday morning. You got temperatures in the teens. Now the wind will dry a lot, but with that amount of rain, there's going to be still a lot of runoff in spots. There's going to be areas, bridge, overpass, and some poorly drained areas that are going to have some ice, black ice on roads because of that runoff. So Monday morning is still a big problem for the commute time. And look at highs on Monday. I'll move this forward just a little bit. Yeah, we don't get out of the 20s. So we're going to go through an extended period of time way below freezing. And I think on Monday night, Tuesday morning, down to single digits. And that's just the first of possibly 2 Arctic rounds of air. Another one late next week. So most of next week, you're going to have high temperatures each day, barely getting above freezing. So this is very critical. Have a backup heating source in case you lose power. It's very critical. Okay. So a lot to watch in stages. First of all, that little bit of light wintry mix in the morning, then the freezing rain concern Saturday night, to the heavy rain concern Sunday, to the black ice on Monday. Oh, and then the Arctic air to follow. It's just one after the other. So it's just a lot to watch there. Next map here is going to show you a little, this is on the high end of things. I'm just showing you this just to show you that, yeah, there's going to be a period you may see a little light snow. I really think the plateau and local mountaintops may see a little bit. and especially plateau area, a little bit more on that leading edge. So you'll still see a little snow in spots, just not a long duration. That's what I mean. Graph model shows ice potential. I want you to notice how this hugs the higher terrain with the deeper purple. It gives a quarter, half-inch average, okay? And in fact, it shows some spots hardly with anything at all. I wouldn't really focus on the city names and the amounts because I think the map interpolates, like Lafayette, for example. I think it has it positioned on Pigeon Mountain. So it may be that, but I really think it's kind of hugging the higher terrain where those higher totals are. So just kind of keep that in mind. But just kind of gives you an idea of those amounts, kind of a rough estimate. And kind of break it down just a little bit. I think the valley is going to vary because, again, as I mentioned, those colder valley pockets. There are areas where cold air gets trapped. It doesn't warm as rapidly as others. So it's going to vary from a trace to a tenth to a quarter inch of ice. And that's enough to make things slippery and cause some power outages. I'll show you an impact map coming up. I think our local mountains around the city, quarter to half inch. Same thing for the plateau. And there could be some areas east that the higher terrain a bit more, especially farther east of Blue Ridge and Ellijay. Those amounts can get up to around 3/4 inch to an inch, which could cause some major impacts. But to give you an impact scale of icing, it shows you that you get up to a tenth of an inch. It's pretty minor, okay? That's where you'd love to be. No higher than that. But you get into that tenth to a quarter of an inch, well, icy travel on bridges, some isolated power outages. The weight not too bad on the trees, but enough that you can add some wind to it, could cause some damage. Then you get to that moderate range, that quarter, half inch, that for our local mountaintops, we're in kind of in that range. We get more scattered outages and more icy travel. You get above a half inch or higher, into that high to extreme level, which causes major outages. And there may be a few isolated spots that reach that. It's not impossible, okay? Because a few areas are going to be more stubborn to warm than others. And so we got to, keep that in mind as we head through that time. But all this icing, the heavy icing, would be something that could be the main thing we watch for during the night, Saturday night. But it doesn't take much to make things slippery around here. They've put brine on the roads and salt on the roads, and that's great. But there are also back roads that are untreated. So even just this minimal range, that's enough to make it slippery. So if you're going to be traveling at all, as the day goes on Saturday to Saturday night, I'd say just stay put. Because wherever you go, temperatures are going to change, conditions are going to change where there's icing, okay? We just want you to be careful, all right? Rainfall amounts, this is in that 2.5 inch range. The bulk of that really heavy rain falling during the day Sunday, so the sooner we can get above freezing, the better, okay? Again, we're going to have to deal with heavy rain, but we hope at that time it's just rain and not still icing going on. And there you have it. Here's our 7-day as a whole. Temperatures could reach low to mid 30s in the valley and then fall back below freezing. I think we could get a surge of warmth, upper 30s, low 40s. I think higher elevations may get just high enough in the mid 30s, but just enough to get, out and mainly into rain. We hope this holds. Okay. Model data shows one thing, reality is another. And that's just something we're going to wait and see how those trends happen if that warming continues to happen on Sunday. Here's that deep freeze we're talking about. That's why black ice could be an issue on Monday morning. Look at that. Single digits. Any areas that get a little snow cover, ice cover left over, maybe a little bit lower. But here we go. We got temperatures not getting back up at all. And in fact, Friday to Saturday of next week, a deeper round of Arctic air could be moving in, making it even colder than that. That may be a little conservative, okay? And yes, people have already asked me, in the longer range of the models, yeah, there's potential for a storm into the next weekend, but there's no way to know exactly where that's going to be. So we're not going to worry about that at the moment. We're watching that. I'm aware of that, but it's 7 days out. Anything can change. Y'all know that during this week. That's been a good example. I've been trying to stress since early in the week that things fluctuate in models and things do change. And that's why we've been sort of fine tuning this throughout the week as this storm develops, because once the system develops, models handle it better. Otherwise, it's just a computer simulation. That's basically all it is. So we'll keep an eye on that for late next weekend. Our main concern is right here this weekend and keeping you safe and informed. All right. So that in a nutshell is where we stand right now. Now, Bill Race will have a live stream and updates tomorrow morning from about midday. I'll be here tomorrow as well. Yeah, we're working every day all the way through the weekend. So hopefully those of you just stayed at home and watching TV, enjoying the great football games on the weekend, enjoy it. We're out here working. And I know the emergency responders are working. The power crews are going to be working. There's going to be a lot of folks working this weekend. trying to keep you up with power and safe. And so everybody's going to be, just watching things very, very carefully. But we got you covered every step of the way. Be sure to follow me on social media. Join me at 11 on News Channel 9, about a half hour. I'll be looking over some of the latest data, see if there's any changes at all as we focus on this upcoming weekend. But thanks those of you for watching this live stream. Thanks for all your comments. I appreciate that. And we'll get through this as we always do, but let's get through this safely. All right. Have a great night. Stay warm. We'll keep you posted throughout the weekend. Thanks for watching.